Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Outbreak official podcast, where we talk to people who've played the festival, who are involved with it in some capacity, and care about this independent music culture that we love so much. Thank you for continuing to listen to new episodes. We publish them every 2 weeks, so follow along. We publish them on YouTube. We publish the audio version. So however you're consuming this, we appreciate it, and thank you very much. But the important information is the fact that we have a 2025 announcement. Some more bands are coming this week, but we have announced some incredibly cool stuff, and it's all rolling. It's all happening. First, June 13th, our first event in London, in Victoria Park, in cooperation with the Lido Festival. We have Turnstile coming back. I mean, their 2022 set was pretty damn legendary. Then we also have Alex G, Knock Loose, Synody Real Estate, and a ton more. Then we bring it back to Manchester on June 14th and 15th with a ton of the bands that played in London, including Slowdive, Denzel Curry, Military Gun, Tsunami, Tiger's Jaw. The list goes on and on. You can go to the website, which is outbreak-fest.co.uk. There's going to be a link in the show notes for you to be able, or I'm pointing down right here, a link in the comments as well for you to be able to check out the entire lineup and then buy tickets. Payment plans are also available, so that way you can, pay over time and it makes it easier for you to attend. We are incredibly thrilled to have Lennon from the band Scarab on the podcast today. Scarab is an amazing hardcore band from the Philadelphia area. They played our 2024 edition and they smoked. They were so cool. And I love the fact that Outbreak is able to have bands of all shapes and sizes. Like, Scarab is an awesome band, but they are not, worldwide known. But they made a real impact at the 2024 edition. And he's a lifer. He has played in bands like Blistered. He also currently plays in Gridiron, and then another band called Face the Pain, which is an awesome traditional old school hardcore band, very Youth of Today influenced. Scarab is what I personally love about punk and hardcore. It's direct, straightforward, dirty, and uncompromising. Very DIY, and I love it. Like I said, new episodes of the podcast come out every 2 weeks, so make sure you follow along. And we appreciate all the support, like I said, that you have given so far. You can leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Those things help out tremendously because that's how people get caught in the algorithm and the recommendations hit you, and then boom, you're off and running. So please also support our presenting sponsor this year, Squarespace. Use the promo code OUTBREAK for 10% off of your first website or domain. And you can also reach out to us at podcast@outbreak-fest.co.uk for any feedback or ideas that you have for next year. So without further ado, like every podcaster says, here is Lennon from Scarab.
I take the blow, then turn the crash. I'll be one by one, from the cradle to the cave. Under the trash, where evil exists. I wake up and kick myself for a single disease. By anyone, it's looking for another soul to sketch. There's no reality, only the sky. Until you can't tell. Oh, tell who I am anymore.
I'm Lennon. I play in Scarab and Gridiron and a couple other bands. Yeah.
I love that. You could just be like, here's like my list of 45 bands.
I listen, but
Yeah. Well, I genuinely appreciate you doing this.
yeah, thanks for having me on.
It's you are a man of mystery to me. I mean, even though we podcasted many years ago, how active you've been within the context of hardcore, like, not only gets me stoked because it's like you've just been doing it.
Yeah.
Whether anybody pays attention to it or whether only a small people pay attention to it.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that drive to? Because besides the love of the core, obviously you have, but like, you just continue to do it and like, quote unquote, get back up, start a new band, do this.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's very much just like I know it sounds a little corny to say, but it's like that, the kind of old notion of like, let's just giving me so much, so I want to just keep giving back to it, type of thing. Especially where I feel like I've kind of watched changes in the scene kind of ebb and flow. And so there's a lot of the time where, you know, like me and my friends will be hanging out and we'll be like, man, there's like really no band like this right now. So let's do a band like this. And it's like, I want there to be modern equivalents to all these like old bands that I love and care about. Because the modern thing is always going to be more important to like me and the people around me than, you know, my favorite bands in the world maybe are bands that I wasn't there for. And even no matter how much I love them, it's not going to mean the same thing. Like, Earth Crisis Strike even today will never mean the same thing to me that Magnitude does. Because I've been here for Magnitude from the beginning. It was my time and I got to experience it in a tangible way. So I want to like just keep doing bands that can fill, you know, so it's like, oh, if we're going to do a fucking Bold ripoff band, or we're going to do like a Strife ripoff band, or like a Marauder ripoff band, or whatever, it's like we're doing it for here and now so that this space can be filled here and now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, you're looking at things in a continuum.
Yeah, for sure.
And like, I really like that idea of making something real for the younger kid.
Yeah, yeah.
Every single one of us was like, a band that was insanely important to you or I as we were growing up was the ones that were literally right there.
Yes. And it's funny because I feel like kind of goes into what we were talking about before we started filming. I almost feel like now, because of the accessibility of like streaming and labeled like more independent hardcore labels, like reissuing old records and stuff, like that kind of gets lost, where it's like 16 to 20-year-old hardcore kids being like really into like really cool obscure shit, and I'm like, no, like don't do that yet. Just like, you know, like you know, like Drain and Speed and Scowl and like stuff like for you, you know what I mean? Like this is like and then when you get older, it's like when I was 16, 17, I was obsessed, you know, Backtrack and Naysayer and like bands like that. And it's like, I'm so glad that I got into those bands and enjoyed those bands in a way that was tangible, like I said, as opposed to like knowing kids who are like, nah, we don't like any current shit. Like, we just like all this like bold obscure shit. It's like, well, you're never gonna have fun or see any of those bands or like experience this in like a real, like true way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's always gonna be like this outside looking in thing. No matter how many scenes you read, no matter how many videos you watch, no matter how many times you like, you know, like read over the liner notes of those fucking CDs and like whatever, like you're never gonna get the real thing if you're not caring about what's happening here and now.
Right.
So,
I mean, yeah, and that's, and I like it almost feels like it's a mid-duty.
yeah,
You
no,
like, you carry on.
I no, it's horrible. I feel this like obligation, like I have to do it.
But it's like, and obviously, like everybody that really gets into punk and hardcore feels like they need to give back in some capacity.
Sure.
But it's like there is, like, you could probably give back in other ways, but you know your space is being like, well, I want to start a band that rips off from Left 4 Dead.
Sure, yeah,
Because that's what I like.
yeah,
There's no band that's around there right now that's doing
yeah. Well, our thing, like with Scarab specifically, because Left 4 Dead is like a huge influence on Scarab, obviously, is like, I feel like we try to do a lot of things that I see bands who kind of exist more of like a punk space do, but like things that I like, but things that I think a average, regular, like capital H hardcore kid would like, but they maybe look at the way it's presented to them with like a punk band and be like, ugh, no. But like, we're just like, okay, well, we're going to just sneak those things in and just kind of give it to you guys. And like, you know what I mean? Like, just kind of do it in a way where I want those things to be, you know, just like the way we write our songs, the way we play certain things. Like, I want those kind of elements to be represented in hardcore also, not just in punk. So
Right.
that's like kind of the goal with Scarab, at least, is like taking elements from that world and contextualizing them in this world. So,
Right.
which to me, it's all the same world, but I know not everybody feels that way. So,
Yeah, and I like what you said there in regards to the fact that like you are taking something, because I mean everybody's standing in the shoulder of giants.
Yeah.
Everybody's just ripping off
sure.
everything that came before
Yeah.
that. But it's like you are then being like, how can we put this through a prism that is approachable to your average capital H hardcore kid
Yeah.
that's never going to listen to a Chris Collier
Yeah.
but is going to listen to Scarab because it's like, do you guys have cool graffiti folk?
Yeah. That sort of shit. Like, oh, you guys have like the Hatebreed parts. Like, okay, so now I'm going to listen to like, you know, the Disrupt parts and like them and not realize that that's what that is, you know? Like,
Yeah.
so.
It's like you're getting important a bad metaphor, but it's like you're giving the kids vegetables.
Yes, literally. Yeah, no, that That is like 100% what it is. Yeah.
Right. You're
So-
like, here's a little peas. It's in your mashed potatoes. It's fine.
Yeah.
You can have your Hebrew stuff, but then
Yeah.
you're getting a little bit of this in there.
Yeah.
You're becoming a little more cultured.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it sucks because I feel like, especially like in Philly, there's like so many like awesome punk bands that I feel like would do awesome on hardcore shows, and like hardcore kids would love it, but it's this sort of like they're unwilling to do it and hardcore kids are unwilling to accept it, but it's this some sort of mutual like thing, you know? It's like the I don't like you because I think you don't like me type thing, but it's, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's like we've tried to be a band, at least in Philly, who's like, yo, like we're gonna get bands from over here and bands from over here, and we're the middle ground, and we'll get them on the same shows and like whatever. So that's kind of like our mission statement a little bit. So
Right.
yeah,
Again, all purpose driven.
yeah, very
It's like
purpose-driven.
the idea of being like, I'm doing this because I selfishly like it, but then there's like an agenda, and I don't mean that in like a bad way. That's
No.
heightened.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, if I didn't like enjoy it, I wouldn't do it.
No.
Like, but when I start a band at this point, like I've been in a lot of bands, I'm like, everything I do is kind of like, yeah, I want to like have like an objective with what we're going to do with this band. And yeah, it is very objective driven. So
Right. And on that topic too, the fact that, I mean, the band's existed for just over a year.
yeah,
You guys have kept it, and I know we've texted about this, very staunchly DIY.
Yeah.
You want to keep it as close to the vest as possible.
yes,
And like, there's clearly plenty of opportunities to not,
yeah,
whether it's working with labels or whatever.
yeah.
What keeps that agenda, I guess, alive in your head where you're like, oh, we just want to do this because of the control of the fact that we just want to retain as much of it as possible? Whereas,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of all that. And also it's like, and I'm not here to say that like, I'm not, condemning anybody who like goes the other way, because members of Scarab play in bands that are like, Molly and I play in Gridiron, and, our bass player, John, he plays in a pretty active metal band. They have a booking agent and they're on Relapse, and like, we're all like we kind of do that as well. But like, I think Scarab becomes especially important to keep it that way when we're doing that sort of thing with our other bands, and like kind of keeping us like grounded to like, just like actual DIY hardcore, and like keeping everything like we're not going to put out anything with anybody other than Rebirth. We're not interested in a booking agent. We turned down kind of like more things like that. And like, again, we're like, yo, total respect. Thanks for hitting us up. Like, I really appreciate it, but that's just not our vibe. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. So
right.
yeah.
It's like, you're like, I respect that hustle, but this is our hustle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This whole podcast is brought to you by Squarespace, which is the place to go when you are looking to launch your online life. And I mean that by a website or domain. First and foremost, go to squarespace.com/outbreak for 10% off of your first website or domain. And they have so many amazing features for you. Like, you're probably in a band, or maybe you're selling stuff online. There's no better way to point people towards a website. Like, you can't just sell something from Instagram. Like, I mean, what is this? 2012? No. Hop on Squarespace, get yourself signed up, and they have incredible features like AI design, where it can suggest ideas to you, where you're laying stuff out. And by the way, you need no code experience whatsoever. I'm an idiot, and I've designed multiple sites with Squarespace to make it super simple and easy to drag and drop. It's all mobile friendly, so that way if someone's accessing it on their mobile device, it's going to look awesome. And like I said, Design Intelligence suggests ideas for you to be like, hey, have you thought about this? This probably looks better than this idea that might not look that good coming from your brain. Computers are cool. Also, Squarespace payments. You can sell stuff directly from your site, and they accept things like Klarna, Direct Debit, ACH, Apple Pay, Afterpay for those of you that are looking for a layaway program, or ClearPay based in the UK. All these things are incredible, and it makes it very easy for you to get your stuff going. You got an idea? Put it on the internet. Go to squarespace.com/outbreak for 10% off of your first website or domain.
This may be a weird question, but something that I know you'll probably have an interesting response to. If I were to put you in the spot and say, like, because I'm imagining at one point you've worked retail in some capacity.
Yeah.
So if I gave you, $9 gajillion and tomorrow you could open up your own retail store, have whatever it is you want in there. We're talking anything.
Yeah.
What would your store look like? What would you sell? What would you dive into?
I mean, it would be a very eclectic
I
location for sure.
Okay. I
It
love
would be like I'd be selling records for sure.
Okay.
Be selling a lot of comics for sure.
Okay.
I'd be selling a lot of probably like just weird old movies and shit.
Okay.
Just weird shit, weird stuff, books, comics. I just like am obsessed with like physical media. Like I'm a weird physical media hoarder.
Okay.
I collect like vintage video games, like old retro games. I collect comics. I collect Blu-ray, like
Right.
all kinds of shit.
So you're like, I live in a digital world, but
But I don't want to. Like, I don't want to live in a digital world. Like, I just prefer physical media in every capacity. I also think that there's a lot to be said about like, I mean, not to go too into it, but like with video games right now, there's a thing that's happening where there's a really serious issue with preservation where like, like you have to emulate to play certain games because some of these older video game companies will kind of, decommission stop printing physical copies and take them down off the digital store. And it's like, you have to play this like half-ass emulation to play it because there's no preservation. It's like, I don't want that to happen with hardcore. Like we need physical scenes. We need records. We need shit that is going to be there forever. I also think that hardcore is very much like put your money where your mouth is. And it's like, if you have an opinion about something, whether it's like something grand on like a political scale, or you're like, yo, there's this thing that's happening in my scene that I think sucks. And like, I think it fucking sucks. Like, put it in a fucking zine. Don't put it in like a tweet where you can like delete it or backpedal or whatever. Put it in a fucking zine and then like, stand on it when, people like it is. I just think that that's like, it's not about what's practical. It's about like what's genuine. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that that's more important than practicality. So
yeah, I love that. I mean, not only because I recognize what I like in you as well, but like just that idea that being able to lock down something where it's like, here's a store that will sell all this physical stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a pop culture, potpourri.
yeah,
But it's all rooted in the fact, like, you're never going to see it like this digital.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You can see it digitally, but not here.
yeah. Like you're coming into my store, you're getting Speak Out on vinyl. You're getting Godzilla Blu-rays, and you're getting like it'll just be weird shit.
I love that, especially because like that experience of going into a store and like creating a relationship with the people that work there, where it's like you could then be just the person where it's like, listen, here's great hardcore records, here's some Italian horror movies.
Yeah, check it all out. Yeah, for sure, 100%.
All right, I'll be your first customer.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm also fascinated by the idea of like side hustles, jobs. Like it's clearly, especially with the path of punk and hardcore, while you can make a living out of it, usually it's like people for years, like they're just like they tour, they come home and work.
Yeah.
Or come home and work. What's been your favorite side hustle, gig, whatever, that's been like, oh yeah, that's like preserved to me while I've been able to obviously do my cool hardcore stuff?
Honestly, not too many of them. I mean,
Okay.
my job right now that I work is fine. I work in healthcare. It's
Okay.
a 9 to 5. Like I work at a hospital.
Okay.
Directly like giving patients medical exams.
Oh, okay.
And it's like fine, but like it's just a 9 to
job.
5. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's I mean, I was like a customer service manager at like a Whole Foods for years.
Okay.
That was fucking awful. That sucked. But what I do now is better than that for sure.
Yeah.
But it's still just like I'm never gonna be like a career-driven person. You know what I mean? I'm just like doing that to afford myself the opportunity to do the things that I'd like to do. So.
Right, exactly. You're like, listen, I have to pay for this physical media somehow.
Yeah,
I have to pay for touring
for sure. Yeah. This copy of Super Mario World in box costs $300, and I have to afford it. You know?
Right. And then people look at your bank statement and be like, what the hell is Lennon wasting his money on?
I'm the most financially irresponsible person on planet Earth. I feel like all like that's like a collector mentality thing though. You know, like all physical media hoarders and like I collect sneakers too. Like just like
Where does it stop?
I don't know.
Shirts, sneakers, records, comics, old video games. Like you said, books, but like
Yeah, I mean, like more zines. Like
zines, right?
I mean, I read like books. I'm not out here buying like old first print stuff. Like,
Sure.
that's a hobby that's way out of, like, above my pay grade, for sure.
Yes.
But, like, I don't know. It doesn't stop, really.
Yeah, okay. It's a constant
It's
rabbit.
insane, yeah.
I like how you also haven't picked your spot either. It's been like, I'm going to do all this simultaneously.
Yeah, it's bad. It's crazy. I'm like a serial hobbyist for sure, so.
Yeah, that's the last two things I want to hit on was the like we were talking about, not only like prior to this conversation, but just like how hardcore has obviously grown to be the biggest it ever has been now.
Yeah.
No, it's a subject that you and I and many people who have been involved in the scene, broadly speaking, have watched and been like, we don't even know what the ceiling is anymore.
Yeah.
And the idea of being able to like usher, like whether it's starting a band to like give the peas with the mashed potatoes, whatever, what for you, what's important for the growth of the scene to remain vibrant, but then also still connected to what it is that you and I care about?
I mean, like, caring about the things like booking DIY shows, booking shows without guarantees, making scenes, having the kids in your scene make the flyers for your shows, like, just like that sort of thing. Those are the things that kind of keep you rooted and like grounded, and it's like the further we go, like you said, we don't know where the ceiling is, and the further we go, as long as we stay rooted in that and like keep that there, I think that's what's gonna like keep it hardcore at the end of the day. And like, don't get me wrong, I do think that there is a ceiling, and we will hit the ceiling at some point, and just like anything else, it's a bubble. The bubble will burst, and then we're gonna go back to basement shows, and we're gonna go back to like the quote unquote real shit. And it's like, then we're going to see who really gives a fuck and who doesn't give a fuck. And like, I don't mean that in any sort of like weird way. I hope that this many people care about hardcore forever. It would be awesome. But I think that at some point it's gonna, you know, it ebbs and flows, you know what I mean? And like, there will be sort of this kind of time when it goes back to quote unquote the dark ages, but they're not the dark ages to me because I fucking love that shit anyways, you know, like 40 people in a basement, like,
That's fine.
going off to Chromax covers is like all I want for the rest of my life anyway. So like, that's fine, you know, like, so I think there is a ceiling that's going to happen. And I think that, to tie it back to your question, keeping the traditions of like the culture and like the things that make this what it is in mind, and like staying connected to them will help people still love and care about this when it's not way up here, and when it kind of goes back to sort of like a smaller thing.
Right.
So,
And also the idea of being able to introduce people, like, it gives people options.
Yeah.
And I think, like, it is intimidating when you first start to go to shows.
Sure.
Like, I got to do all these things. I got to wear these shoes, whatever. I mean,
yeah.
But it's like, to have kids be able to be, like, at a mid-level, being like, oh, I'm dedicated, but, like, am I dedicated where I'm starting bands and stuff?
I understand not everybody's a lifer. Some people are just the kind of like casual core person. That's fine. Like, those people serve a purpose. They have their role in the scene. Like, I understand that, but
Yeah, great. It's like, but yeah, not everybody is going to be as in deep as everybody that is in your ecosystem.
yeah, for sure.
And so the last thing I want to hit on, the fact that you have toured all across the U.S. You've obviously done some stuff internationally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving you a platform to be able to be like, America does this better, or Europe or UK does this better, whether it's food, whether it's...
Okay.
So it's like...
Both.
Yeah, I know. You can you can take shots against the UK, Europe, not having Wi-Fi, whatever it is. Like, or you can say, like, the US, like, we just do it better in these circumstances.
Specifically Europe, or just international in general?
International.
Because I will say this.
Yes.
There were, when Magnitude and Envision toured Japan last year, and there were so many stores that would fit in line with what I was like people would be like, oh, we got to go hit this shop. And I'd be like, oh, well, like, what's up with it? What's the deal? And it's like, it's just like a thing. And you walk in, it's like, oh, it's just like cool shit. It's just like, you know what I mean? And it's just like, there's things like that everywhere in Japan. And like, I wish so bad that we could have that domestically, but, that's one thing.
Yeah.
One thing that, I don't know, I don't have too much American pride, so I don't really
understood.
I like that we have ice water, because here every time I ask for water, it's like lukewarm or there's bubbles in it.
Yep.
I was like, bro, I just want ice water, please. So that's the one thing that else I will say America does better that I like.
Yes,
It's just ice water.
and it's an easy target to mention that.
Yeah,
where
for
it's
sure.
just because it's so like obvious to us that it exists in America.
We were talking about being dehydrated earlier.
Yes.
I'm probably dehydrated because I can't find ice water. Like, legitimately, that is probably why I'm dehydrated. So,
Yeah, you're just like, literally, give me something with ice in it, and it will be less dehydrated.
yeah, for sure.
And I'll probably be less hot, too.
Yeah. 100%. So, there's one thing.
Yes, just it's ice. I think it's about time, because the UK has existed for obviously much longer than our country.
Yeah.
And has had plenty of people complaining about this.
Yeah.
It's about time.
I will say my favorite hardcore scene in the world right now is Glasgow, Scotland.
Really?
Favorite hardcore scene in the whole world. I think what they're doing is like absolutely fucking incredible. I mean, I love the Northeast.
Yeah.
I love South Florida, like places where I am from and now live and have been a part of for years. But Glasgow, the Due to Northern Unrest, Demonstration of Power, Despise, Nothing But Enemies, all those bands are like, they have created this sort of flavor where you like hear it and you're like, oh, that's a Glasgow band. They're like everything from there. They get it where they're like, this is more than just the songs. This is the artwork. This is the flyers. This is like everything we do. They have cultivated this sort of aesthetic. And there's like a tradition of like older Glasgow bands for sure. But those guys have really made their own scene kind of out of nothing. And it's like sort of reminiscent to me. I feel like that's the modern day version of like the 8,000 stuff, to be honest with you, where it's like, oh, this fucking random ass place, and over there, like, they just made one of the coolest hardcore scenes in the world, like, out of nothing. And that's like really, and now are like globally, you know, kind of respected, and like, so I think that's one thing, that's my favorite hardcore scene in the whole world right now is Glasgow.
I love that.
Yeah. Those guys really get it.
Lennon, you're great. Thank you for
Appreciate you. Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'll do the appropriate handshake.
Yeah, thanks. Cool. Thank you.